Here are 8 ways to help students own their own behavior. Let's take a look. Number 1, model that responsible behavior. We all know the saying, actions speak louder than words. Well, it's true. Don't make excuses. Take that ownership of that behavior and make those actions match that behavior that you want to show. Make sure you stay solution focused. Don't just complain about something, but problem solve. Number 2, explicitly teach responsibility. Students need to know what responsibility actually looks like, what it actually means to be responsible. This can be done by using both examples and non-examples for students of what responsibility is and what it isn't, as well as that positive reinforcement when they're on the right track. Number 3, restorative practices. In your classroom, allow time and space for students to have self-reflection and also to have time to make future goals, to set those future goals. If you have time for reflection and goal setting, that will make better decision makers in your classroom. Number 4, small group sessions. Just like for any academic rigorous material, some students may need to be pulled aside into a smaller group to allow for additional encouragement, scaffolded instruction, and differentiated instruction. The same thing goes for decision making. So pull those students that may be having a tough time into a small group and allow that opportunity for them to practice those skills where they're supported in that small group environment so that when they get back to the larger group, they can work on transferring those better skills over. Number 5, reinforcement. Let's reinforce that responsibility. We need to praise those who are taking ownership of the behavior and link it to their own selves. For example, you must be really proud of yourself for owning up to not completing your homework tonight. You took responsibility for your behavior. What are we going to do in the future to make sure that doesn't happen again? So pose those questions to students to make sure that they have opportunities to take ownership of their behavior and opportunities to correct their own behavior. Number 6, use class circle time. Class circle time can be used to help build empathy and compassion. Class circle time can be important for discussing issues that affect the whole class. While it might not be appropriate to use class circle time to address individual concerns, if there's a whole class issue or something that's impacting most of the students, give students the opportunity to speak and share how other students or other students' behavior is making them feel, how it's affecting them. This will help the other students understand consequences of those actions. Number 7, teaching problem solving. Working collaboratively with others to put solutions into practice is a huge skill for teens to have. As teachers, we must encourage shared responsibility for that classroom environment and shared responsibility for all students learning. I always tell my students, don't do anything to keep the teacher from teaching or others from learning, including yourself. With teaching problem solving, you can also brainstorm lists of consequences for different behaviors and negotiate with students on what they think those consequences should be and how they can help best contribute to that positive learning environment. Number 8, do what you say you will do. Follow through is very important. If you have rewards and consequences in your room, be accountable for those rewards and those consequences. Make sure that those students feel that accountability and you are accountable for following through with what you say you're going to do. By doing this, you're helping students understand the repercussions of their actions when they're not consistent. And when you show that you are consistent, then students will want to model that behavior as well. So, how do you take all of these things and do them? Well, one at a time. In my particular classroom experience, I feel a strength of mine is modeling good, healthy behavior and decision making to my students and being consistent. I also provide my students with behavior reflection forms, either in a digital option, interview type setting one-on-one, or they can do a written reflection about how their behavior or decision impacted themselves, others, other students and staff members, and what they could do differently in the future to get a different result or a result that they wanted even more. I always remember to allow for fresh starts and second chances. And I try to remember that each student is a whole child. They're a whole child first, a student second. Being that student is a small portion of that whole child. And we need to remember that. If you take all of these tips into account, slowly incorporate them into your classroom, you will see students working on building those decision-making skills. So each of those small choices that they make can impact the bigger choices that they have to make later in life. Students' areas of their brains that deal with decision-making are not completely formed until they're in their mid-20s. So we have a lot of work to do with modeling that behavior and reinforcing that behavior, giving students opportunities to make sure that they have chances to make mistakes, and not just jumping quick to correct those mistakes, but allowing the student to understand that mistake and problem solving on their own first before immediately reaching out for help. So the more chances we can give to these students to make these small choices in a supported environment, the better off they will be when they get out into the world and have to make very big choices later in life. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thanks so much for watching.